I too, so it's going to be both mics over there. Thanks, Pierre. Let's start with you. Your question number 1.
Is our level of self-responsibility measured by our current will, unless we have a higher desire, more in harmony with God's laws, which higher it, or desire less in harmony with God's laws, which lower it?
Okay, so your main part of this question, firstly, starts with probably a misunderstanding on your part, Pierre. You were basically asking, when I am self-responsible, is it measured by my current will unless I have a desire? Is basically the first part of the question. Well, self-responsibility is defined, as we've defined it, as a desire. So actually, when you're in this state where there are no desires, which actually, when you think about it, is quite impossible to achieve, really, for most people. You usually have some desires about something, right? But imagine for a moment there were no desires about anything, then you would have zero self-responsibility. Doesn't matter whether you're a six-sphere spirit or anything, you'd have zero responsibility if that state was possible, which obviously it's not, but you would have zero self-responsibility. So self-responsibility is the desire for self-awareness, the desire for truth, the desire for love, the desire to live in harmony with the principles, the desire to discover one's nature, and so forth, is it not? So where does self-responsibility enter? Here, can you see? What God's trying to train us with regard to self-responsibility, he's trying to tell us that everything is driven by desire. And the reason why he's trying to tell us that is for this reason. If you're reluctantly forced into things, which is this area here, obviously you're going to be resistive to the process every single time, aren't you? Right? But if you have a desire to engage a process, you're not going to be resistive anymore. And in fact, desire creates an interesting state in the soul that will is never able to accomplish, right, by itself. Desire actually creates an opening in the soul to reception. So if you do not have desire, it is impossible for you to receive. The actual ability for the soul to receive, technically and mathematically, is created by the soul's desire. So if you're in a state where you're resisting all the time, your will is being forced into change only because of that pressure cooker thing we talked about in the will discussion. If that's what's happening, the reality is that the desire part of your soul has not opened, and the problem with that is that you're not going to be able to receive anything, actually. You cannot receive anything that you do not have desire to receive. Now, that God's created the soul that way, and it's very important to understand that, right? And I feel even in this discussion of what I'm saying to you, most of you still don't really get that it's actually a function of your soul that desire opens up a certain area of your soul that is otherwise closed with regard to what it is you desire. And in fact, if you try to get things with willpower, once you achieve them, you will not be able to receive them anyway, unless desire is present. You see what I'm saying? So you won't actually receive anything, even if you think you're striving for it using willpower. You won't actually receive it as a gift. You won't. You won't view it as a gift. You'll believe it's an attainment, something you deserved, which means that you're not now open to the concept of a gift being given. And pretty much everything that brings us the most pleasure is gifts rather than attainments. You know, does that make sense? So while attainments are obviously good, we can achieve certain things, at the end of the day, the real pleasure comes from the soul by receiving a gift and actually actuating that gift in your life, you know. And that particularly applies to the reception of God's love. So if you try to willpower yourself to receive God's love, which many of you have done, impossible to do because God's love doesn't respond to will, it responds to desire, right? So God's love won't even respond to your current condition, no matter how good your current condition is. So you can be already at one with God and want to and get to the stage where you don't want to receive more love. And by the way, as I've mentioned, that's also an impossibility, because by that stage you really do want to. But if that could be achieved theoretically, then you would receive no more love, right? Because it's desire that continues that receptive process. Desire, as I say, opens up a function, a part of your soul that allows energies to flow from potential sources that they couldn't flow from before, external to the soul. So it's desire. So when you desire knowledge, now knowledge can flow. So a person who's like trying to discover the cause of cure of cancer in a physical way will eventually find, because of this principle, the physical cure for cancer, even though emotions might continue to cause cancer and create cancer. You follow me? But they may find the physical solution to cancer in terms of the scientific process, because there are scientific processes involved with everything. They may find that. But at the end of the day, if they don't desire to see that the cause of it is emotional, then they will keep treating cancer, even though they have the solution to it, but cancer will keep occurring. Does that make sense? In other words, they haven't solved the real problem yet, because to solve a real problem, you've got to treat the cause of the problem. But without desire, they couldn't even find the physical solution. Does that make sense? They wouldn't. They wouldn't even be working on it without desire. So when you desire knowledge, knowledge will flow. When you desire information, information will flow. When you desire other things, truly desire them properly in a pure way, if you desire money, money will flow. That's the way it is. But not in a impure, it's not impure desire. As soon as it's impure, it's like, I want more money than you. Now it's impure. Or I want my money to feed my addictions. Now that's impure. You see what I'm saying? Pure desire will always make the thing that you're desiring flow in and out of your life. Because remember, all things that flow have to have an entry point and an exit point. Otherwise, it becomes like a dam that gets more full, and eventually nothing can flow. Does that make sense? For things to flow, there has to be a source higher and an exit lower for things to flow. And that applies to your emotions and your knowledge and every other thing as well. So in other words, if you decided to want knowledge, but only because you wanted it and you weren't going to share it, you're not going to receive much knowledge, because it's not flowing out of you. You see? Basic principle of life. Desire is the thing that engages it. Yeah. Peter, you'd like to ask?